Okay.
Got it. Those of us that were online had a nice chat.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually at that meeting last week and that was quite interesting. But hopefully today we're on, and I guess I've got to mute now.
Why?
Well, if it starts, is it starting? It looks like
No.
it's going to.
Well,
No?
maybe I guess it is 7:30.
It is 7:30. Okay.
I haven't heard anybody starting to anything.
No. There we go.
And nobody there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people.
Wow.
7.
It's a baby meeting.
Oh, here comes somebody. 8, 9. Miss Bell.
Meeting started. I'll be here after the meeting. I won't. I'll bring you up to the meeting. I'll sign them while we talk.
If you let me sign the checks, it'd be a lot easier on me. You're being recorded. You know you're being recorded.
Maybe someplace you don't want to sit.
Kim.
Bring me those checks. I'll sign them. All right.
Yep.
Next time you go to
Right. Well,
I'm coming up front.
the restaurant, Isla is now
I'll give
hosting.
a louder bell.
That's so neat. That's so
There we
neat.
go.
We should be going up soon. Our
She's
daughter.
with us. She's with us this
Got
week.
Bob Rodig on
Oh,
Zoom. Got
well, look for
Howard on
her.
Zoom. Kim was
Good
on
to-
Zoom. I'm sure
Good
there's
for
a
her. That's good practice.
huge one is second, believe it or not. And this is our last club meeting of the Rotary year, so no one showed up. I know, we have as many people online as we do in person, which is great, so thank you all for coming. But yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. It's great. So meeting's already being recorded, and everything will be up on YouTube by the end of the day. We've got an agenda today. There's all the usual stuff. An exciting program. If you want to do the Pledge of Allegiance, a real flag is over this way if you want to face. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. You can remain standing one moment. We'll do the 4-way test. The things we think, say, and do first. It'll be fun. Awesome. Dennis was joining us. Dennis, come take a seat. Sit anywhere. If you're a back row kind of kid, that's fine. All right. We've got no guests in person. I'm guessing we've got no guests online. Is that right, Terry?
Yeah, I recognize all of you.
All right. No guests today. Please be seated. Feel free to. We have scratchers. So did anyone buy these scratchers? Oh, her. So I'll enjoy it. All right. Well, I'll grab. All right. So whoever put the one on the side there, 800. Great. Joanne came to scratch for today. Not great. So the person who had volunteered to do Rotary Med wasn't able to make the meeting today, so I get to do it. I reached out to some other people who signed up and not been able to do it last month, and they couldn't do it. So I went to convention, so I'll tell you about that because you haven't seen me since I went to the International Convention. It was really interesting. I was on a panel on Saturday, and then I facilitated a panel on Monday. And right after that panel, I started feeling pretty sick. You know, like I was like, I had a headache, and my throat feels a little bit itchy. So I'm like, you know, I'm gonna go home. I'm not gonna stay out and have fun with people. And then the next day I was like, I tested and still, I had a negative on Monday, a negative on Tuesday. I'm like, I'm just gonna call it a day and not go out because who knows, right? Well, then come later that night, like Tuesday night, I got a positive test. So then I got to quarantine. And then I got to isolate in Houston all by myself for 10 days. It was really great. No, they're supposed to fly me. Yeah. So then I got to stay in Houston for 2 weeks. It was really exciting. Most of it in a hotel room working on what I worked on though is I updated the Rotary Peach fundraiser website. And I worked on a new website for the club. So I spent that time, the 8 hours I was awake during the day, and then the 14 to 28 hours a day I slept. But yeah, I worked the waking hours. I worked on websites. So my Rotary Minute is sometimes you go to convention, and the best thing that comes of it is that you get stuck in a hotel room and have to do Rotary work. So
When you're isolated like that, you're still responsible for paying for your hotel room.
oh yeah.
That's the part of it. You can't fly. You can't.
No, well, and you can't go out to eat or anything, so you have to use delivery services full time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's.
But it's better than it used to be with DoorDash and all that stuff. Pretty much everything's at your fingertips. I found some really great restaurants in Houston without having to go there. So, any recommendation, give you some. Well, Bob, we've got you online. We can hear you. If you want to tell us a little bit about peach sales.
Are you ready to turn the website loose?
Almost. We haven't got the Stripe account fully set up yet. That's something I'm hoping to get done tonight.
Okay.
I had
So peaches will be delivered on the 13th of August. So get your calendars all set up and crossed off for a work day on the 13th of August. We need to, as soon as the website is released, you need to start well, actually, you can start contacting your folks now. You just won't be able to order online. The pickup spot is changed this year, so it's going to be very important that you tell the folks that you're selling peaches to that we are now having them picked up in Boulder at the Nothing But Cakes spot, which is on Arapahoe in front of the Safeway. Peaches will be delivered that morning. And then any that we have left over, we'll be able to store it at Safeway. So it's a good time approaching the 1st of July that you start hitting people up. I'm sure they're going to be looking for peaches. Due to the cost associated with everything these days, including getting the peaches here via the trucks, we had to raise the price to $34. Hopefully that's not going to deter anybody. We still have to make it well known to everybody that this is a donation. This is what keeps us going. This is what allows us to give money away. And for that, they're going to get, a 10-pound box of really good peaches. It looks like the peach crop is as good as it's been. And we all know what seeing our peaches have been like. They've all been pretty good over the years. We're also going to be selling Bruce B. Jammin' Jam, the 10-pound, the 10-ounce, I think it's 10-ounce bottles that we've sold in the past, $10. Just the 3 flavors, peach, peach jalapeno, and bourbon peach. All 3 are very good. We've passed on vinegar and barbecue sauce this year. No half boxes of peaches. It's going to be very straightforward on the website. You just order a box of peaches, you order the number of bottles of jam that you want. We're going to need orders by, I think, the 7th I'm sorry, the 3rd of August. So you've got probably 5 or 6 weeks to start letting people know about peach availability. And again, very important, remind them that the pickup point, that are programmed to come to Gun Barrel, and we'll put a sign at the pickup spot in Gun Barrel that we've moved the pickup point in case somebody just goes there automatically. 9 to 12 will be the pickup time on the 13th. Do we have any questions? Oh, one other thing. Those of you that feel that you're unable to sell peaches, we're asking that everybody either sell 10 boxes of peaches or provide the profit for what that 10 pounds would have been, which let's see, 10 boxes.
We don't know the exact number, right?
Yeah, I'll get you the exact number.
But it's about half the
but
cost.
come on, you got neighbors that would love peaches. You've got friends. Everybody needs to belly up because this is very important for Leslie's time in motion here. If she's going to have money to give away and the club's going to have money to give away, gotta sell peaches. Any questions?
Yeah, so you're right, Terry, it is for Terry's year. And I heard already, Bob, is there the flyer and we sent the poster out. Do you want me to send that out to the whole club today?
You can, sure.
Okay.
Just to let you know that last week when it was announced that it was August 13th, I was concerned about the Lafayette peach sale.
It's the next week.
20th. So we're still a week ahead. So use that as your marketing opportunity. Because people can still go to Lafayette peach sale next week.
Okay, Bill, you have a question?
Yeah, can there be a box on the online sales so they could fill in like who the Rotary member that they bought it from?
There still is. Yeah, we had that last year. We'll have it again this year.
Did people fill it out last year?
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
not
there's,
very many.
Yeah, and sometimes people even filled it out when, there were different dynamics of how people filled it out, but sometimes people filled it out and sometimes people didn't know the Rotarian because they didn't know, so they'd say, I don't know. So we got a pretty clear angle on it, but what we'll have at the end is we'll have that full list of everyone. And so if there were people that didn't fill out a Rotarian, we'll be able to say like, okay, did I get credit for so-and-so and whatnot, and Bob can take that into account. Okay. Any other questions? Bob, do you have any final notes here?
Nope.
Well, thank you so much for doing all of this. Yeah, the website should hopefully be up today. Last night, we got notification that they reduced the cost for credit card processing down to the lowest available. So it's just over 2% processing fee, which is a little below PayPal by like 1/10%, but And then Amex, just so everyone knows, if people run Amex, it's like 3.5%, and that's just across the board. So, paying with Visa and MasterCard will definitely be a better option if people are purchasing. But that said, yeah, peach sale. So make sure that your calendars are free on the 13th. We'll have the tent set up on the Arapahoe side of Nothing But Cakes. So we'll get a lot of street exposure on 28th in Arapahoe. And we're only gonna have that one major location. So that should be, from like a pickup standpoint. If we end up doing anything else, that's separate, but from pickups, that's the only place that people will be able to pick up.
One other item, Jay. For those of you that can offer your services for the weekend, as we get closer, we'll be deciding if we're going to set up at another location to sell, and if we're going to sell on Sunday at the Nothing But Bunt location. So those of you that can offer some time on Sunday to sell peaches, as we get closer to August, we'll determine, where and how much extra time we're going to need.
Thank you, Bob. Dennis?
Just curious, how much, I can't remember what we paid last year or what we sold before last year. How much did it go up?
Substantial amount. Bob? we
20,
were at
28 to 34.
Wow,
$6.
wow.
But I mean, that's, if you do it by inflation and especially under fuel surcharge right now.
Guaranteed they're gonna cost more than that at Whole Foods and King Supers.
Oh, I'm just curious.
I think right now we were seeing 1 pound of non-tree ripened peaches were like $2.80 a pound right now. But that's from like an early season import. So yeah, we'll see.
The early peaches are the clings where you
Yeah.
can't cut them off the pit.
Yeah.
Use them out of the Rockies.
Thanks, Dennis. Just a reminder for everyone, we will be next week, well, we'll get to that, but in 2 weeks, we're not gonna have a meeting, the 4th of July week. So please feel free to take that as a vacation week and sleep in a little bit on your Wednesday if you can. But on the 13th, we'll have a club assembly, Leslie's first meeting, and we'll do a bylaw vote that week. Joanne's prepped some new bylaw guidance to send out in advance of that meeting, so that everyone will be able to review it. And those will be some bylaw changes in preparation for this next year.
Jay, I think tentatively Leslie has set up a Zoom meeting for the 6th for those that have questions or for those that are involved specifically with peach sales.
Right, yeah, the peach sales meeting will be that at that time. And anyone can attend those, so it's not, there's no limit on who can be involved. Next week, Wednesday night is Nissy's. We'll be doing our installation dinner. We've got a lot of guests coming, so it'll be really great to have as many people there as are available. There you go. Someone have a question?
Well, Macy's moved over COVID, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the email that's gone out with the information that has the most recent address. And definitely if you're questioning yourself, go to Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever and double check, but it's, yeah, so we'll be having that there. We have a request for someone to volunteer to give out the non-member name badges. So that would be the guests that are coming. We'll be putting those together at the location when people come to hand to them. So if anyone's available to do that, we can do it in advance or do it on site. But we're just looking for someone to help with that. Anne's asked if anyone's available to give their time to do that before you're like, you could rush out. Okay, I'll let in. Thank you so much. All right, so tomorrow, Thursday at 5 to 7, there's the grants and club qualification training. So I know Angie will be going to that. I'll be going to that. And if anyone else is interested, that's a district training given to learn about it. I know that Leslie's not gonna be able to do it, but I think Howard might be able to as well.
Is this, you have to go to it or is Zoom?
Virtual Zoom. Zoom.
Zoom, okay.
Yeah, and it was sent out in the district email, but I can forward that to anyone if there's direct interest in it. So definitely email me if you want that link if you can't find it. You do. Then next one is the extra early bird registration for the international convention next May just closed. So now we're in early bird. So if you're looking to go to convention, I believe I'll be going. I think that Leslie's going. Terry said she might be interested in going. So we might have a pretty strong contingent from our club. And the Australia conventions are a lot of fun. So if anyone's interested, we might be able to do some fun travel down there. All right, we've got Happy Bucks. So anyone here have any Happy Bucks for today? Herb, thank you.
Great Father's Day. I would see all the grandkids and have wonderful times.
I have an IOU. I finally, after the 3rd try, I made it to maroon bells, Telluride, bucket list completed for Colorado.
Don't leave us now.
Couple of happy months and a $30 because it's just It's beautiful outside and, I'm surprised there aren't more people here. Because Flip is a great speaker.
Yeah. Well, we'll have it canonized on YouTube for all those people who are traveling this week. Any happy bucks back here? But no, Terry, no. Anyone online with happy bucks?
I have a happy buck. I'd like to thank Jay for a really positive year as president of Boulder Flatirons Rotary. So thank you, Jay.
Terry, we were asked who was speaking. That sounded like Bob.
Oh, yeah, that was Val.
It was Val. What are these speakers? It's hard to tell.
No, I wonder if we knew who was on Zoom, you know.
And I'll do one quick happy buck because I drove with my parents down from Brighton to Albuquerque in order to have dinner with my sister and her 2 children. She has a 4-month-old and a 4-year-old and her wife. And then woke up, we ate breakfast, went over and said hi to them, and then got back in the motorhome and drove all the way back. So 16 hours of driving for one meal and a hi. But got to see my 4-month-old niece for the first time because of COVID, and they had COVID and then sold their house and lived in their camper trailer on base in Petaluma, and now they're moving to DC, where they'll be on base stationed there at the Joint Base.
So
for the next few
Ellsworth
years.
should stop for them.
I know, yeah. My sister didn't even know that was, she's like child duty. My sister-in-law is like driving duty. And my sister's like, oh, we're seeing my parents tonight? And my sister was like, yeah. Well, saying, yeah, we're in Albuquerque. We're gonna see your family. She's like, oh, okay, great. So, it was really nice to see them. It's always a little bit chaotic with them, but it worked out. So beautiful. All right. So now we get to do our introduction. Bill, if you want to hop up, that'd be awesome. For our speaker in our program today.
So it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Cliff Gronseth. He graduated from Dartmouth College. He worked in rural Africa before attending the University of California, San Francisco Medical School. He did his specialized residency training in physical medicine rehabilitation at the University of Michigan, and then joined the faculty at the University of Colorado Health Sciences Center, where he started the CU Spine Center. He also established Spine West, a successful outpatient physiatry practice in Boulder, which has been named the best medical facility in Boulder every year since 2017. He also founded the NYAGI project, a nonprofit organization focused on teaching ultrasound skills to medical workers in low-income areas around the world. So welcome, Cliff.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for the hybrid audience. Yes, so I will be conscious of the time for the questions at the end. So what I'm going to do today is try to explain why a non-surgical orthopedist is trying to save mothers' lives in remote areas of the world. And I won't tell you the full story. If you have time, I can tell you the backstory, which is quite interesting. But let me get started.
Oh,
you got to start the slideshow. So, yeah, so for those that don't know, I'm a physiatrist, and physiatrist is a small medical specialty that does non-surgical orthopedics and neurology. People don't know it, but it's about 10,000 of us in the world, and yeah, and some of my.
And he knows my husband.
And so, yeah, I know a lot of people in the audience and in restaurants and things like that. So, yeah, so the Yagi project, we're trying to save pregnant mothers' lives with education, ultrasound, and technology in remote areas of the world. Low resource countries typically have a medical system that's a hub and spoke model. Most of the resources go to the metropolitan city hospitals. 90% of the dollars go to these city hospitals in the low income countries, simply because they want the latest and greatest MRI, CT scan, etc. But the people in the spoke areas, which are the ones in the rural villages, usually get very little of the resources and very oftentimes neglected. So let me see if this will go. So what is NYAGI? So, this is my outline. What, so what, now what? And so I'll explain what NYAGI is, why we have it, and then what the potential is. And I'll explain why it's linked to Rotary at the very end. And just so you know, I'm trying to do a roadshow with many Rotary clubs to explain what this is about. I'm hoping to make this almost I'll get to the punchline. Spoiler alert, trying to make this a global brand. Okay, and we're trying to get many Colorado clubs to participate in this. I'm in the Boulder Valley Rotary Club. I used to be in the Boulder Rotary Club, and I switched over to the Boulder Valley Rotary Club. And so we're kind of
One club away from trifecta.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I know. But I heard so many good things about you, and so that's good. There's one universal truth. Everybody in this room and in this audience is listening. Had a moment or hasn't been. That's universal, guaranteed. And you know how important mothers are to a family, to a system, to the community. To me, they're the center pole of the tent. You lose a mother, you lose the whole construct. Yagi is an acronym for Now You Are the Group's Interest. And what we try to do is educate, empower, and then elevate the medical system of these low resource countries. And we can do it. And I'll explain how we do it. Who is NYAGI? This is NYAGI. This is a woman in Nepal with her child. And the woman up in the upper right-hand corner is also NYAGI. This is NYAGI. This is NYAGI. This is NYAGI. These are who I work for. These are my bosses. And every 2 minutes, NYAGI does. That's the sad fact. And that's the statistic that we're trying to change. And most of these women, most of the NYAGIs that we're trying to help live in these remote villages that have little access to healthcare. And like in Nepal, they might be 2 weeks walk from a hospital or a clinic to get care. But we actually can use technology to save their lives. Every 2 minutes is 300,000 a year. I don't know how many died in COVID so far, but this is every year. It's been going every year. So we're trying to change that. And if you do the math, it's equivalent to 2 fully loaded 747s crashing every day. So imagine waking up every morning and you read in the paper, another 2 planes crashed for pregnant mothers. That's all I think. That's my unit of measure is 2 minutes and 2 planes a day. So how do they die? Well, I don't know if you can see it remotely, but most pregnancies turn out fine, or they kind of spontaneously abort when things are not right. But a mother can have a normal pregnancy, except that the placenta, which is the blood sac that feeds the baby from the mother's blood, is the interface, sits low right over the birth canal, right on top of the cervix. And if she goes into labor with that little spongy blood supply right over the cervix, and she starts to dilate, she dies. She will bleed out. It's like ripping open an artery, and she'll just bleed out in front of you. The mother and the baby usually die. So we're trying to save it with ultrasound. Ultrasound was developed by bats, right? They invented it, and whales. And then the military got involved, and they started to use it in World War II to identify the submarines. And then right here in University of Colorado is one of the original research centers for using it on humans. This is the Hubbard tank. It was done right up here in Boulder, and now this is the size of an ultrasound machine. Yes, this is an ultrasound machine right here. Yeah, so the technology is miniaturized this, and this will broadcast to my phone. So this is literally an ultrasound machine. You can take that anywhere. You can take it up the Amazon River, top of Everest, to remote villages, just in your pocket. And this can save lives. So what we do, what our vision is, But our mission is every mother, trying to save mothers' lives. But our vision is that every mother in this world should have access to prenatal ultrasound to identify if she's going to die in delivery. And you can do that safely with ultrasound. It has no radiation. It is portable, it's safe, it's immediate, it's dynamic. You can see things moving around. And it's a technology that's ready to really just explode into the world, but it's hard to. So what we try to do is educate. This is learning ultrasound is like learning to fly a Russian helicopter at night with no manual. It's very difficult. But over the years, I've been doing ultrasound for 20 years, mostly for orthopedic issues, and I've fallen in love with it. It's a visual stethoscope. You can see inside the body rather than listening to the body, to the lungs and the heart. You can now just look at it. You can look at it. You can actually see COVID pneumonia with this device. And so this will replace the stethoscope. In 10, 20 years, you won't see stethoscopes anymore. You'll just see ultrasounds in the doctor's pockets. And you go in with shortness of breath, belly pain, something like that. They'll pull up this little ultrasound machine, scan you right in the spot, and say, "Oh, you've got a gallstone, or you've got pneumonia," or something like that. So what we're trying to do is teach ultrasounds, which is difficult, to these healthcare workers going to the remote areas of the world. Most of them are going to be nurse midwives or called skilled birth attendants. And what we did was we initially started with in-person training. We have a small group of expert sonographers with over 100 years of combined sonography experience. And we basically went in person and taught. And what we do is we provide them with the tools to learn. We give them some software that I'll talk about that I created, and also some of the ultrasound machines and these kind of probes. And we basically empower them with the knowledge to teach others. So we're not just, it's not a finite fixed project. It actually can scale because they can learn the technology and they love the technology in these low resource areas. The first thing they did in the fall was take selfies. And with the goal of trying to elevate the regional healthcare, in their district, or preferably in the country. And we're trying to go country by country to do this. So, and the idea is that you can use the ultrasound not just for prenatal care, but also for diagnosing kids with appendicitis, like I said, pneumonias, heart problems, etc. Really as a triage tool, so that they can transfer the patients to the metropolitan or city hospital and get more advanced care. So you can take these patients out of the villages and have them walk 2 weeks so that they can get appropriate care. Because otherwise they wait until it's too late and then there's nothing to do. So it basically is a very efficient way of cherry picking those patients that need more advanced care in these low-income countries. This was the first, actually this is the second group of skilled birth attendants that we taught in the fall. There's a group picture. Let me run through quickly our history and how we learned every time we did a project. We started in Nepal. We were invited by another organization called One Heart Worldwide to go over there, and they were training nurses to become skilled birth attendants, which are basically specialized in delivering babies and taking care of pregnant mothers. Arlene Seaman, who started that organization, met me at a dinner, and I said, "Well, I teach ultrasound, and maybe they can use that as a tool in the toolbox to help these mothers in remote areas." And she said, "Sure, come on over, let's see what we do." So I went over with a very small team to try it out to see if we could teach ultrasound very quickly. We were there for a week, and we had about 30 skilled birth attendants, and then we did both lecture style and hands-on style. And of course, a lot of questions. It was new to them, and then we were successful. We came back, and Arlene said, "You got an A++ for teaching ultrasound, but she said you get a D- for teaching how to use an iPad." Because they didn't know how to turn it off and reset it and things like that. So the second team that we brought to Nepal was composed of high school and college kids, and they taught the iPad. They had an essay for college and med school, and they actually had a purpose. They weren't just there to carry luggage. So it was a wonderful experience. We did so well that now about 20 to 40 women a month are being referred out of the mountains to city hospitals based on the ultrasound findings. And they're going district by district. In Nepal, there's about 65 districts that we're trying to penetrate the ultrasound. And they're literally just trying to spread ultrasound throughout the country. So then we got invited to Haiti. In Nepal, we got in trouble with the government because we were too good. The government got mad at us because we went in for a week and taught ultrasound when it took them a 3-month course, pulling these skilled birth attendants out of the mountains for 3 months to teach them ultrasound, and we did it in a week. And they were saying, well, who are these uppity Americans coming in and showing us up, et cetera. And so we got a little crosswise with the government, and they said, well, you have to do a study, you against our system, et cetera. And I said, every 2 minutes a mother dies, I don't know. And so we moved on to Haiti. They're still working in Nepal with the ultrasound, but we moved on to Haiti. And in Haiti, as you know, it's really just a mess of a country. We got invited with a USAID grant, and we went down there and we changed our model a little bit. We started to, rather than taking our experts and teaching these novice skilled birth attendants, we actually started to train doctors and advanced midwives. So they had a little bit higher knowledge of anatomy and using ultrasound, et cetera, because we found that bringing Einsteins from America to Nepal, halfway around the world, and teach these beginners from scratch wasn't efficient use of our time. So then we said, well, let's go to a higher level of education, and then we trained doctors and nurses, and that was very successful. The USAID grant bought these little portable kind of fold out ultrasound machines for the different clinics, and we taught about 40 doctors and nurses there. And we had 2 separate trips, but then we hit COVID. And our last trip was March 2020 when we were flying back from Haiti. That's just when COVID blew up around the world. But luckily, we met, this is Dr. Exentis in the colored shirt, and he was a radiology resident there, and he's now become a champion for our in-country champion for Haiti. And he actually changed our whole model because he was so good. He was bilingual, or trilingual, because he spoke the native patient language as well as French and English. And he was a radiologist. He was just fantastic and a great personality, a great teacher. So we changed our model to training trainers only. So now because of COVID, we were not able to travel to Tanzania, but we were able to teach remotely using technology and Zoom and everything else how to do prenatal ultrasound. It's never been done before, and we succeeded. We started with 4 master trainers in country in Tanzania, 2 doctors, 2 midwives. 1 doctor had a busy clinic schedule, so he got out. We've got 1 doctor and 2 midwives who are now masters at doing prenatal ultrasound. And I have a whole green screen broadcasting studio, like a weather studio. In my office, you can see the green screen in the background. I've got multiple computers and setup. I've got broadcasting software, and we literally are teaching ultrasound around the world. This is Dr. Steve Rockholz. He's a OBGYN professor at Chicago. We used to scan live patients, in these low-income countries. The pregnant mothers are ubiquitous. You tell them we're free scan, and they line up a mile deep. But in America, everybody's with all the lawyers running around, we can't do that. So we did a fundraiser, and we bought some what's called phantoms, these little plastic models that scan well. And now we use those, and we can pull. I've got them sitting in my office. I can pull them out and just have an instant mother, instant 7-week or instant 21-week pregnancy right in my office, along with some ectopics and things like that. So now we're able to, again, we can teach anywhere at any time, which gives us a lot of flexibility, because one of the biggest risks for traveling to these low-resource countries, if you haven't traveled to these poor countries, you get sick, you get touristic, you get diarrhea, or whatever. COVID. And if you take these experts and you travel to these countries and they're sick in bed, they're pretty much useless. And you just wasted a week of everyone's time and money. If we get sick here, we just said, okay, well, let's do it next Saturday, right? You have to quarantine for 10 days. Okay, well, I can still teach from my hotel room. So, and we tie in with technology, we tie in teachers from New York, Arizona, Colorado, and we do. And we also are teaching now, this is what COVID looks like. This is a wet lung with ultrasound. So we're expanding a little bit of our teaching. So we're basically using, we're maximizing or harnessing the power of technology to spread the education of ultrasound around the world. This is a picture we took in Nepal, and you think, well, technology in these low-income countries, it doesn't match. It's an oxymoron. But if you look at this picture, there's the satellite dish right there on top of this high mountain shack. Exactly. And this is after Nepal. You can see this is after the earthquake they had about 5 years ago. And so, but yeah, I mean, it works. Technology does work in these countries, and they're really desired. Am I going to tell?
Can I just ask a quick question?
Oh, can I finish and then we'll go to the questions?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I'm almost done. So 2022, we just got a district Rotary grant for starting a pilot project in Nicaragua. So we're going to be training 4 providers, 1 doctor and 3 midwives in Nicaragua. We just got the funding and we're going to start that probably next month. And we also were looking at, we have somebody that knows people in Senegal. I was trying to get connected with the indigenous peoples in Alaska and even here in the lower 48. If anybody has connections into the Indian Health Service, I would love to talk to you because that is a hard nut to crack. I cannot get past the walls of that institution to understand what we're trying to do. And but we have the teachers and the enthusiasm to make it work right here locally. We also, interestingly, we repurpose old iPads, old technology. So I created software which works on iPads, and we're rewriting it to work on phones. But the iPads work on like iPad 2s, way back. And so these iPads that are sitting in people's drawers or closets can now be repurposed and save mothers' lives around the world. And we used to be able to geo-track them. Apple changed their system, so it kind of threw a little wrench into it. But we could geo-track these iPads, and we can tell Mrs. Johnson in Iowa that your iPad is in this little village in Nepal, and it saved 12 lives, and it was just sitting in a drawer unused. And so we have these iPad and iPhones and basically just unused technology repurposed to save lives, and some of the local high schools are participating and trying to generate, shake the bushes for old technology which is not used anymore. And like I said, we're rewriting the software so that it works on phones, so that it's a little bit more mobile. But this is, and we used to be able to drill in with Find My iPad right down into the village, and you can see where that iPad was, where Mrs. Johnson's iPad was sitting. It's in this little planet right here in the So what are the facts? I'm almost done here. So every 2 minutes, mother dies. 2 planes a day. The technology exists. It actually exists today. I have it in my hands to prevent it, to change it. It's really about just teaching how to use this tool. In education, we are an education nonprofit, the NYAGI project. But COVID has been a blessing for us, oddly enough, because now we've been forced to learn how to teach remotely, and we've successfully done it. So now we can do this anywhere in the world. The resources, are different. There are some challenges depending on the countries, but the opportunity now exists to truly change the world. There's not many times that you can actually say, I saved a life. I literally changed the world. Doing a lot of the goodwill that everything that Rotary does. I love Rotary. It's the perfect organization for this kind of project because that's what everyone in Rotary is about. It's about helping others. We can actually empower these people and together elevate the level of care. And the ripple effects are tremendous. You think about saving a mother's life, and the kids are not orphans, and the community still has people in the village, etc., to help out. And unfortunately, the sad fact is that women bear the work and the brunt of everything in these low resource countries. Not that they don't hear, but you see the men at the bars smoking, and the women are out in the field with a baby on their head, you know, harvesting the wheat, right? And so it's just a fact. But the key thing is that the ripple effects of saving a mother's life is tremendous. And I can talk about the economics of it if you want. On the right-hand side, you saw, you were watching this, perhaps you were watching this little, I have a video here, but I don't think I'm going to play it. I'll open up for questions. If you want to watch the video, we can do that later. But so I thought that Rotary was the perfect organization, the perfect platform for bringing ultrasound to the spoke areas, to the remote areas of the world, because the people in Rotary all have the same common interest of making a difference, and together. And a lot of Rotarians are very well connected, especially in these low resource countries. You don't know the Ministry of Health and these successful business people, so they have the power to actually make this work inside of these low resource countries. It's just a matter of bringing people together. And if you look at the 6 focuses of Rotary, we fit 3 of them: maternal and child health, basic education, and disease prevention and treatment. So there's 3 out of 6. And so my goal is to try to get, we have this pilot study in Nicaragua that we're going to start in a month with the district grants. And I'm hoping to next year apply for a global grant. And I'm trying to get as many clubs involved as a participant. You know, it doesn't have to be much, but if we can't give us a, hey, can you throw us a few cents just so that we can show the global grants committee, we've got people that really want to make a difference globally. And my vision is that this kind of becomes the next polio project, right? It becomes one of these global projects that every mother has access to diagnostic ultrasound around the world, no matter where she lives. Somebody in that region would know how to do ultrasound. And an interesting side ripple effect I didn't mention, in the fall, when some of these skilled birth attendants went out to these remote villages with their ultrasound machines, they know, we're coming up there next week. The mothers is kind of like bees to flowers or mice to cheese. They came out of the villages that they wouldn't ordinarily do. They would stay up in the villages. They came out to get their baby scanned, and it gave the skilled birth attendant a chance to interact with the mother and talk about nutrition and family planning, what it's all about, etc. It had a touch point. It brought more people into the medical system than otherwise we never have seen. Like I said, Paul is incredibly well. So what we're trying to do is save lives with ultrasound education, and that's it. So
How much do you need?
TBD. I have to do the numbers. Yeah. So we're not using these probes. These are actually Chinese probes. They cost about $2,000, but they're not all that durable. Yeah, and there's an American company that made an ultrasound machine on a chip. And I showed you one of the slides, and it's like a little butterfly. It's called butterfly probe, and it's on a microchip, and it's all sealed up. It's very durable, and you can drop it and swing around. And they have a really nice system because you can save all the images to your phone and your iPad, and then when you connect to the internet via Wi-Fi or whatever, you can upload them to the cloud into this big database, and we can look at those images and we can critique them. And that was the beauty of technology. We can then say, the whole game here is to get a good picture and send it to somebody who knows what they're looking at, right? Because that's the endpoint. That's how you pass the test for our master trainers. Is it clear? Is it well labeled? And can a radiologist or OBGYN identify that? we identify normals, but we're really looking for the abnormals, and if you don't know what it is, take a picture, send it to somebody that maybe can help you, and should a mother walk 2 weeks out of the mountains for this ultrasound? And there are cases where they can.
So Cliff, if a mother has the ultrasound and it shows that problem you were describing, do they have to then get to the main hospital to have a cesarean delivery?
Well, they may, there's the definition of previa, it's called placenta previa, which is when it's low lying. If it's within an inch of the cervix, that is considered a high risk delivery. And so they may be able to deliver without, but because the margin of placenta is so close to the cervix, then it warrants her to go and camp outside of the hospital until she starts to get labor pains, and then to get admitted. And if she's got a full previa, if the placenta is sitting right over the cervix, as the pregnancy develops, for guys that don't know, it will migrate up as the baby grows. So if it's low at the beginning, the first trimester or something, first 12 weeks, it doesn't really matter, because as the pregnancy advances, the placenta usually will start to migrate up away from the birth canal. But if it doesn't, and you can see that with ultrasound, if it's sitting low, that's guaranteed death. This is like a crystal ball. You can literally say, you are going to die if you stay in this village. You have to walk 2 weeks over 18,000 foot passes to deliver your baby, or you will die. And if she doesn't, she dies. But then if her sister is the same thing, her sister's going to die, because the second mouse gets the cheese kind of thing. And so, yeah, so it is a crystal ball. You can predict what may happen, and you can also just monitor. If it's like 7 weeks and she's got placenta previa, you say, well, come back in a month and we're going to look at it and see if it's moved far enough away, because it really is using the ultrasound as a triage tool to cherry pick those mothers that need to be in a hospital. Whether or not they get a C-section, it depends on what the conditions, but they're not ready to do the C-section if they need to. If they're in a village 2 weeks away and they start going labor, it's done, game over. And the ripple effects of watching a mother die is the skilled birth attendants. Psychologically, they just get depressed and they quit. So now you've lost a healthcare worker in the northern rest of the world. So the ripple effects of saving these mothers is tremendous. Yeah.
First, I want to open it up to see if anyone online has some questions. I'm sure they're there. My question was, as a general concept, do you know what percentage of the population in the world would need this ultrasound technology? Like, just as a general concept?
You mean how many
Like out of the 8 billion people, like what percentage of the world populations, need access to ultrasound technology? It knows
8 billion.
Well, so but
No,
I mean,
and the reason is, like I said, it has uses above and beyond just prenatal care.
yeah.
Diagnosing COVID without a test, you can see if you've got a wet lung. Diagnosing a heart problem if you've got infusion, diagnosing blood in the belly. So it can be converted to other purposes. The pregnancies that are high risk tend to be less than 1%, 1% or less. So most women that are scanned are normal.
Right. Yeah.
And but what this does by screening the abnormals is it cuts all of the normal exams in these city hospitals to just the abnormals, right? So they're not filled up with 99 normal pregnancy scans and one abnormal that we see in the city hospital. So they can basically just pre-select the high risk ones. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. I mean, I guess I was looking more for like, okay, so like the town of Silverton doesn't have medical services, so they would need this, whereas you go to URA and you've got a regional hospital right there. So that population probably would be counted. Where, from this project perspective, just trying to identify, you're saying this is an polio, and we were really able at the time in the 70s to identify 68% of the world population needs this, and the defining boundaries for it are pretty clear based on urban, rural, suburban demographics at the time. I guess so. I work with the Rotary Foundation, and I'm just conceptualizing how you would pitch this in that kind of mindset, you know?
Yeah, looking at the numbers, I would think about Haiti. Like, Haiti has 11 million people, 6 million live in Port-au-Prince. Yeah, and so that's let's just say 60% of the population is going to live in the metropolitan areas. I would say 30 to 40% of the population does not. And the ones that live in the rural areas, it's a sharp drop off in the access to anything. And most of the deaths that occur from pregnancy are in sub-Saharan Africa. In Africa, for those who don't know, they call the city hospitals the morgue because patients, they never come back. So by the time they actually have to go to a hospital, they're so sick that they die. And so they are afraid to go to the hospitals. In Nepal, the local folklore is if you go to the hospital, they put snakes in your arms, that I use, and they keep you away from your family and they do all this evil stuff to you. And so they don't like to go to the city hospitals. There's an interesting story about another organization that was teaching in Uganda, I think, and they brought ultrasound to the villages, and the mothers wanted to go get scanned, but the husbands, the dads didn't want them to get scanned. They thought it was voodoo, it was going to hurt the baby, so they would beat up the mom if they went to get a scan, and that's Africa. And then they finally gained the trust of their fathers, and so when the ultrasound came back to the village, the fathers wanted to go see their babies. And if the mother didn't want to get scanned, she get beat up. So either way, the mother was getting beat up in Africa, and that's the character of the cultures. And so we're very sensitive about how it plays out. And I just talked to two doctors in Pakistan 2 days ago, and we're probably going to start a project there as well. The key thing is, and everybody I talk to that becomes a partner with us, they understand how the rural areas are just not given resources that's equitable for what goes into a country. Yeah. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I would have to look at that. And probably my broad stroke guess would be 30 to 40%. And you can look at any, even Colorado, how many people live in the Denver metro area or the junction.
So Herbert's kind of our grants guru, and he was involved in a big grant in Columbia. If our club wanted to get involved, what would our next step be, or how do we move?
Well, Rotary is, like I said, Rotary is the magic organization for this kind of project in my mind. I run the NYAGI. I started it. I'm kind of the champion for it, etc. I cannot write the grants. I'm not allowed to because of the conflict of interest. So it is. But I'm a Rotarian because I joined Rotary with the idea that it's the best venue to make this scale. And so Diana Fields, Rob Harbaugh, in my club, Maud Kenyon, they're the ones in my club who are kind of leading the charge. They helped me get the district. They applied for the district grant. We got $15,000. And for the Nicaragua project that we're going to start. I'm looking for help, absolutely. And that's why I'm here, really to kind of toot the horn of the potential for this thing. And I'm volunteer. I have a day job. And I run a nonprofit, an international education nonprofit. I run a software company. I run Spine West, and I'm still married. Luckily, my wife's a physician, so she understands that what I'm about. But you had a question.
Well, I just wondered what has been financing your project to do all this that you've shared with us so far?
Private donors. There's a couple of couples who have been very generous with their donations.
Okay.
We have an operating budget of probably less than $35,000.
Really?
Yes, we've done all this with less than $35,000 a year. That's it. And we most of the money goes to buying the probes. These the butterfly probes with an iPad or an iPhone, etc. Costs about $3,000. And I can get into the math here. But this was told to me at a meeting I went to. There was somebody from the World Bank that said, a woman's life, if you calculate the value of saving a woman's life at age 20, and unfortunately, the women that are pregnant are usually not really their teens, 12. But if you save her life at age 20, and she lives another 50 years with this device, right? And she makes less than $1 a day. Let's just say $300 a year. $300 a year times 50 years is $15,000 per life in these countries. This is the calculation that the World Bank officer told me. This is just napkin math. So if you saved, this probe costs $3,000. And if you save 100 mothers' lives with this probe, 100 mothers' lives equals $1.5 million saved for the economy of that country. I mean, I don't know what kind of returns you guys get in your investments, but it's hard to get it's hard to get 1.5 million out of a $3,000. And again, that's just kind of like napkin math kind of things that the World Bank organizations calculate. So people say, "Oh, $3,000, you can do a lot of vaccinations and things like that." Yes, you can. At the same time, this has the potential to literally change the medical fabric of countries that we go into. So our goal is to go country by country, kind of like McDonald's, and to set up these ultrasound education systems and empower them with the tools, and then they scale. And that's the goal. Train the trainers, empower them.
So what are you foreseeing the global plan to look like? What are you asking us to participate in?
You know, I really, as far as like, I'm looking for ideas. I'm fairly new to the Rotary grant system. It's complicated math and everything else. But for those that, you know, the matching
Complication comes in execution.
Yeah. And so our model is we have some master trainers that we can train anybody, and then we partner with organizations that have the in-country resources, the connections to get the Ministry of Health approval, and also to try to scale it to phase 2, which is in-country providers, whether it's the governments or corporations or rich people in the country that want to save mothers' lives, to fund these probes that then will go out into the rural areas. We train trainers, and the global grant is basically designed to try funding some of these, try to pick a few countries and then phase it into scale 2 and let this grow. Like Nicaragua might be perfect. We're starting the trainers program next month, and we could, and Tanzania is another one. And I'm hoping Rotary would basically help fund the resources for the probes. And I give myself away for free, but the equipment is pricey. And then using the Rotarian system in these countries, because the partner organizations in country will be a Rotary club that can oversee it from within, because we can't do it from here.
So do you have a Rotary club in Nicaragua?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Where is that?
It is in Matagolpa. I think it's the Sumoto Rotary Club. I think it's the Sumoto. It's there's a gal named Becca down there who the people in the Boulder Flatirons Rotary Club know. They've worked with her in the past, and she's a Rotarian herself. She runs an organization called the House in Nicaragua. I think you know it's politically in this as well. We just try to ignore that. She's already, Becca's in the country. She's Rotarian. She knows the system. She knows the fabric of and the mentality of the political system down there. And so she's the one that's internal champions.
So this is a global grant to go, not even country by country, but more an application in a country and then expand that to another application in a country, as opposed to.
You could do it both ways. Yeah, you could. Well, you always have government approval. You have to get it. We learned that from the fall. So you have to get the Ministry of Health. But you could either spread it wide and get these seeds planted in all the countries, or you pick some countries and you scale it within the whole country and use that as a model and say, okay, now we can do it for other countries. So I'm not really sure. If you want to help us and Diana and myself formulate this global brand. Yeah, and so, that's to be decided. I was just trying to get a little bit of seed money to get this Nicaraguan project done, and we got that, so that's where we're gonna start.
Well,
Okay, sorry.
no, but it was a pleasure. We have a little token of gratitude for you. Paperweight, but it's the whole world and the Rotary logo. So now in your videos, you can have that sitting on your desk. Like,
That's right.
so
That's
it's
it.
an absolute pleasure. Right there. Thank you so much. And we'll have this up on YouTube and send you the link today. Okay. Well, with that said, everyone, I'm sure that Cliff wouldn't mind a couple extra questions if you have some short ones for him after the meeting here. And thank you everyone online that attended. We had a whole bunch of people, so we'll have to get you that list. Pete and Val, everyone's on there as well. So Angie was there. And as always, and the last time I get to say this in a club meeting, is Wednesday at Rotary. It's glad to move the transition.
Okay, yeah.
Jerry, come on. Oh, I didn't write it. Okay. My next
Way better than you're on the general search is recorded.
Right.
Are we now speaking getting more people on the stuff or are we putting it in?
Yes.
This one will be.
Well, that's why we're thinking. So.